I want to welcome everybody to our second Tuesday Hypnosis group at the Leaning Tower Y. And we've got people from all over the country, which is always exciting. It's one of the coolest parts of the Zoom meetings. One of the bad parts, not bad, unfortunate things, is that we don't get to do the hugs, because that's such a important part of the meetings. And we all know it goes back to Larry Goldberg, who was such a force of good, positive, loving energy. And he always talked about that. And even though we're all Zooming here, that energy comes through. We've got that energy on a higher metaphysical level, and so we're all joined up here, and that's a wonderful thing. Linda Williamson has been doing hypnosis for a very long time. She brought up Larry Goldberg, and we all know Larry Goldberg has been around for a long time, and I'm not sure how long ago did he pass? He left us a long time ago physically, but he's always his presence has always been with us. And but Linda has been doing hypnosis for a long time. She teaches and she speaks at the conferences. She's on the board for the Mid-America Conference. And she's one of the most loving, spiritually connected people I know. And we are blessed that she's here to speak to us about her life in the last 12 months that has been topsy-turvy, and she's going to share all that goodness with us. So thank you very much for coming, Linda, and it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Don. And David also contacted me to arrange this. And as I mentioned right at the beginning of this, before many of you came on, a year ago, I was planning to speak at this group, which is very, very important to me and has been since I met the group. And that's when my husband got actually placed on the transplant list. And so we were unable to commit to anything because we never knew, when we would get the call. And so I had to decline after I had already accepted. So I'm very happy to be here this year, and especially with all of the good news that, has come to me from this experience. It felt to us over the last, and although it seems like just this last year has been pivotal for us, it really all started many years ago, like 7 years ago when we got the diagnosis. But my husband is much more private than I am, and those of you who know me and my teaching style, I'm often teaching whatever I'm going through, because that's, for me, the now is when the information is the most pertinent, and that's when I like to share it with people and tell them, well, here's how I'm approaching this, and some of it works, and some of it not so much, and like to give that kind of feedback to my clients, to my students, to anyone that I'm speaking to, in any audience. And it was very, very challenging for me to have to keep this private. I mean, even within our own family, most family members did not know before maybe 2 years ago. So it was way different than my style. I did share with a few, and many of those who I did share with a bit earlier are actually on this. I know they know a lot of these details, but I feel honored that they are still here anyway to hear this overview of the whole trip. But most of them offered me so much comfort, so many ideas. They told me about healers. They, helped me with processes. When I would tell them what I was thinking or feeling, they supported me. There was so much of that kind of comfort, which I really appreciated, because I was a little off kilter with this whole privacy thing. which I understand. You know, I really think most people are like that, but it's never really been my style. And so I felt like I was falling apart, actually, more than my husband. He seemed to be steady through all of it. He, to me, seemed like he had a knowing, but I knew at certain points that, he didn't, but he still kind of faked it well. He handled it really well. But I was like on this roller coaster. I was going up and down, and even within individual days, I'd have my highs and my lows, and I just felt very like good to have the tools that I had. I've been in this field a long time. I have so many tools from so many healers and helpers, some of which are, actually on this presentation. And I feel like that's what really helped me, was sticking with these tools. So that's what I'm here mostly to share with you. That, how I felt and how I helped myself to feel better, because we know that when we feel better, we can do better. I had certain ways of thinking that worked for me, and some that weren't working for me, and how I changed those, what I did my best to change those with, and philosophies that I already had about life that supported me and really encouraged me to keep staying positive and moving forward. But the most important, I think, were the actual processes, because this kind of information that we're talking about here in this Zoom land call are, they're experiential. That means that you have to experience them in order to benefit from them. And so even though we might like to talk about them and we might feel that we know the process, unless we're actually using the process, there's very little benefit. And so I am going to focus on several of the processes, as many as I can fit in, and I'm going to be watching the time closely so that, I can help to stay on track with that, because those were the most important pieces. And I hope for you, because you have come into this call, that you identify what is a match for you, that maybe you even take some notes and you then practice these things so that they feel like tools that you have in your life, because life's going to keep happening to us. We never know. Really, some of the people who have known me through these 7 years, like all the way back 7 years ago, say, I never knew anything was wrong with you. Well, because I was using my tools then. It just got more and more challenging, being on that transplant list. And I mean, many people die on that list. They never get their transplant. I mean, it's just a fact of life. And so, I think that's when I started really being on my roller coaster there. But I really want for you to take away some of the tools, whatever ones feel maybe that you feel the most connected with, or whatever ones seem to you to be, a match to you, so that you have them available when things hit you in your life. And hopefully nothing does, but just in case, it really is helpful to have some tools to fall back on. And having looked back over this whole journey, what I feel was my biggest kind of block was kind of the belief that my husband had to take this journey the same way I took the journey of my health maladies. And I was always the one sick. I had so many things, and many of you have heard me talk about all of the things that I have had to get over in my life that were actual physical ailments. I used to get cold sores, not the kind that just stay in your mouth, but they came out on my face. They'd go up to my nose, or they'd go up to my eyes. They were really horrendous and ugly. I had to find a way to get past them. I used hypnotic processes. I had warts on my arms, from my elbows to my fingertips on both hands, and then from my knees to my toes on both legs. I had to find a way to get past those. I had asthma, chronic bronchitis most of my life. I had sinus problems so terrible that I had to get them stripped like every 6 months. The list went on and on and on. They found a suspicious growth in my parietal lobe that I negatively hallucinated until it was gone. I have had grinding teeth. I've had Parkinson's diagnosis. There's so many serious things. And my husband witnessed most of these. He knew that I had had never really wanted to be a part of the whole medical answer. If I took medications, I usually had that long list of side effects that they put, there for people to stay away from this drug if you have any of these side effects. And I was usually the person who had multiple of those side effects. So I really felt that I wanted nothing to do with the medical answer with those things. And he really, he was signed up for it. He often spoke about how, he believed in the, medical miracles and medical science. And it was hard for me. And yet when my clients would come to me, if they said, say, many of you know, and a big part of this, which is a process that's too lengthy to teach for me to share with you tonight, but it's EFT tapping. Now because of the COVID, we're tapping in different places than we did before, but all of this kind of meridian tapping that I would go through, that all of that is a way to help you to feel different. Sometimes with this stuff, you've got to feel better, in order to do better. And I just, even that, if a client came to me and they did not care for EFT tapping, I never made them do it. I never said, well, you have to do it this way. This is the way. I would find a way that kind of met what they wanted. Many of them also chose, medical operations, these kinds of things. And I, for whatever reason, I think it was mostly because my husband really encouraged me with the way I did it. He would tell me how proud he was of me, that I got past this or that or the other thing. He would even talk with other people and say, oh yeah, she did this and she never even took anything. She just did it all with her processes. But when it came to him, he was like, no, nothing. I got nothing for you here. And that, I don't know if I took it like a judgment. I'm really unsure why I couldn't just let him have his journey. I'm sure that's what, kept me on that roller coaster, was my own inability to just be okay with that. But what he wanted to go through, I mean, a double lung transplant. They cut you open. They call it a clamshell. They cut you open. They lift up that skin. They break up your breastbone. They break that apart. Then they take out your old lungs. Now they put in somebody else's lung. I mean, this kind of like, how could anybody want to go through that? And then there would be all kinds of restrictions. We were told, there would be foods he could never eat again. Things he could never drink again, things that he could never really be in crowds. He would have to avoid others. He couldn't do any air travel, no hotels. He would be on medications as his immune system. That medicine would become his immune system for the rest of his life. And lots of side effects to work through. I'm thinking, who would want to go through that? But I mean, that's really how terrible he felt, that felt like a good option to him, a good answer. And so it was very frightening for me. And I just want to go into just a little bit of the issue, because that pretty much explains like how I ended up going through it my way and he ended up going through it his way. So hopefully you understood that. But in 2013, he had a very bad stomachache one night, and he was feeling so ill. He was doubled over, and so we had to go to the emergency room. And they took care of him, but they kept him overnight because it was already late by the time, he felt he really needed help. And he was, a part of what they did with him the next day was give him a CT scan, or even I think they did it that night late. But in the morning when he woke up, there was a doctor sitting there who identified himself as a pulmonologist. And the pulmonologist said right up front, hey, I realize that you came in for a digestive issue, and you're probably wondering why I'm sitting here as a pulmonologist, but we found significant scarring in your lungs. And they asked him how long he had been smoking. Well, my husband never smoked a cigarette in his life. In fact, he was very adverse to smoking. When I met him out of college, just fresh out of college, I had smoked in college, most of my college career. I had actually quit smoking about 3 months before I met him. And he, right away, when he found that out, people would still say to me, you want to have a cigarette break? And I would always say, no. And he's like, why do they keep asking you that? And I'm like, oh, well, I was a smoker. I just quit, 3 months ago. And he's like, hey, if you had been smoking when I met you, that would have been a deal breaker. He's like, I wouldn't have taken a second look at you. I'm like, oh. And that was just like 3, months before. But when they found out he had never had a cigarette, then they started looking for other reasons or ways that his lungs could have become that scarred. And when there was nothing external, he hadn't been, in fumes or in a job that would have been high risk for that type of a thing. And when they did the full history, the whole full test, what it revealed was that he had alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, and it manifests itself as emphysema in the person. And so he was always very rather upset because he had never smoked. And a lot of people, when he'd say he had emphysema, then they would assume he had smoked, and even say kind of mean things like, well, yeah, you probably damaged your lungs. And he was like, no, not really. But at that point, when we went to the hospital in 2013, his lung capacity was already only 40%, which most men at that age would have still been like probably in the 90 percentiles. So it was pretty scary to even hear that. And the only treatments that they had for alpha-1, they had nothing that could cure it, nothing that could reverse it. They were only drugs that could keep the person from getting any worse. And so he went on those drugs right away, and they were in the form of an infusion, which means you have an intravenous hookup. You have to have a nurse come every week on the same day, pretty much like you had to do it routinely, weekly. And so we started then every week, all that time until we got the transplant last fall for that infusion. But it never really helped him that we could tell. They said it might have slowed down his deterioration, but by the time we got the lung transplant call, he was at 26% and he could no longer walk and breathe at the same time and talk unless he had his oxygen tank on. It was liquid oxygen by that time, to level 15. Which was the highest that you could really get with any kind of oxygen that you could like carry around with you. And so that was pretty scary. And we realized, or I realized right away when I heard that this disease, or it's really a deficiency, it's actually a liver issue. Your liver stops creating what would allow you to have this endorphin, or I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it helps your lungs. but your liver actually creates it. And this disease causes that creation to stop. And then your lungs without it are at a deficiency, and they really, really struggle. But boy, when they said emphysema, it really shook me to my core, because my father had died of emphysema, but my dad smoked every day of my life. But he died when I was quite young. I was just 14 years old, and my dad and I were the only close ones in my family. Everyone else and I had an estranged kind of a life growing up. And everyone was also estranged from my father. And I never really understood it. It was only explained to me when I was a full adult, after my mom had also passed. So it's just really kind of a weird place to be. But I would listen to my dad cough himself to death every single night and cry and cry and cry and cry. And beg Jesus, whatever there was, for this to be different from my dad. And he did die of it. He did die of it while, I was just at 14. And, when I met my husband, and he said how, he would have never been interested in me if I smoked. And I remember kind of thinking, oh, good, he'll never get emphysema. Boy, I would not want that. But then, things happen. And here he gets it from this genetic disorder. And, many of you are very interested in the subconscious and these patterns that our subconscious plays over and over in our life. And, I began to come to the conclusion that now maybe I was manifesting this in some way, because, here I am with this guy that hates smoking and gets emphysema anyway. And, here I am facing the same thing that I went through with my father. And, it was so serious to me that it made me think that I never really wanted to have a relationship where I would get married. Nothing that committed, because I was afraid that whoever I would connect with would leave me, would die, like I'd be alone again. And so that part of it was really deep for me. And I kept going through all of that, trying to figure all of that out over and over. And I mean, I told my husband that, but, he was like, ugh, that's not the greatest thing. But it wasn't really anything to him, because I'm sure he never thought about it the same way I did. But I started to, really focus on it in that way. And I started talking to myself like, hey, what if this is really my issue? What if I created it? And it was okay if I could look at it that way. But then I kind of started, because, first I wanted him to do it my way. Then I kind of blaming him a little bit. Again, I'm going up and down that roller coaster. And I figured out that what are the chances, that my husband would have this? So it's like anywhere from 1 in 1,200 to 1 in 3,500 people that get this disease, which means it's like a 0.0008 to a 0.0002. Not just 0.0 or 0.00, but 0.002% of getting this disease in the very, very first place. And really, even if you have the disease, many of the people also smoke for whatever reason. And he never even smoked. So I kept thinking, oh my gosh, it really is my fault. And then kind of fast forward to a few years later, I was going through some of my old notes from like 2010 or so to maybe 11. I think it was right around the time I did a class called Teen Consciousness 2010. And I found it in a box of spiral notebooks that I would take. I used to take copious notes about everything that happened to me. Not really like a diary, but more like I'm trying to figure it out and how stuff is related. And I found a note in one of those spiral notebooks that said that I really believed in the power of hypnosis to heal people physically, not just mentally, emotionally, energetically, but also physically. And that I really wanted to stop fooling around with these other areas and just focus on people who really have serious health issues. And yeah, there it was, like right staring me in the face. And I just really felt then like I had to have created this, and I kept like right away kind of blaming myself. Why did I have to think this? Why couldn't I have, it's kind of that be careful what you wish for thing. Like, why didn't I think, about it a little bit more and at least exclude my family or something? I know it sounds crazy, but I really am wanting to share with you so that you kind of get how all of this is really connected. And, once I claimed it, that maybe I really created this, in a kind of, in one way, it kind of did make me a little bit stronger. It kind of, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but I felt like if I created it, maybe really I could uncreate it or decreate it or disconnect with it, something like that. Does that make any sense to anybody? I hope so. Because, that's really how I felt about it. I thought that, I've always been a firm believer in the law of attraction, and that we as people are always vibrating and we are attracting to us based on where we're vibrating. And I had a lot of negativity in my life throughout my life, and I probably had been attracting a lot of negativity. And so I started to think more and more that it was going to have to be me that would have to change. And even like I said, just looking at the way the two of us were reacting to this and how he kept being very steady, very solid. He's going to do whatever he has to do. And I mean, he did that literally every day. This was not like, there were occasional times where he'd just get really angry. But to give up, nope. But then there was me on this emotional roller coaster every day. And I kept thinking, I'm the one pulling in the negativity. Again, blaming myself. But I did my best. And I kept saying, trying to talk to myself in ways that calmed me. So I just want to share a few of these thoughts that I said to myself. I would often say, especially like as I was trying to settle down for bed, you ever notice that? You worry about something. I started to recognize that I was doing a lot less of loving my husband and a lot more worrying about him. So I tried to say things to myself that made me feel better so that I could offer better to him. Like, I am calm, I am comfortable, I am in control. This little mantra is even in our National Guild certification class, and it's a part of their self-hypnosis process. And it was one that I had learned a long time ago, and I just started saying that to myself as I was falling asleep. I'm calm, I am comfortable, I'm in control. And then I'd add on other phrases. Many of them were like Louise Hay. I've been a long time believer in her work, but I'd say, I'm becoming the change for the better that I desire. I'm willing to forgive my past and look to my future. I'm achieving the goals that I want for myself and my husband in this life. It's important that I stay positive and believe in myself. And I would say these things over and over. I persist in helping myself every day in every way. I'm getting better and better. I'm willing to become my own best friend in this. I love myself and I want better for me. I'm ready to get past these problems. I'm ready now. I'm moving toward the best and highest good for us. And there were even a few that I could say in front of my husband and in front of our children. Our children did know about it also. They were the first to know other than myself. And what one of those phrases was things are always working out for us, because my husband and I really did believe that. We just seemed to, from the time we met, we just seemed to really have a good, things happening that were good for us. So when I would say it, I'd occasionally say it. Sometimes he'd say it. Things are always working out for us. It would usually be when something started to work out for us, even in the times of the drugs. Like maybe one drug we weren't going to be able to afford because it cost $28,000 a month to take that drug. And then it would get approved. We would find a way, to get it approved under our insurance plan, or where we, thought we could keep our doctor, but we couldn't keep our doctor. But then we found another doctor, and then we were able to go back to the original doctor. But we would point out that phrase. We would say things are always working out for us. And then we would remember more things like that have really worked out for us in our life, to kind of keep that momentum going. And another phrase that we truly believed in, both of us, that we could say aloud, were all things in perfect timing, because timing for us was a big thing, and it really did. Timing did seem to work out for us. When I very first met my husband, he was only in my hometown of Aurora for a few weeks, and it was the first weeks that I came home from Western with my master's degree. And I was just there a very few weeks, or I had just gotten there, and he was only there for those few weeks. And I ended up meeting him because my niece took me to a place that I would never go to. And he happened to be there, and I met him there. So we were like, wow, perfect timing. Because then he was sent shortly thereafter, he was sent away to Oklahoma, of all places. And it's because they would send him, because he was young, he was single, he was the type of person you could send all over. And he worked in food service, and he would go and train the people who were there that were hired for running a cafeteria somewhere, and then he would move on to the next job. So if I hadn't been there right in that window that he was there, we might not have ever met. He would have been off other places, and I was not staying in Aurora. I had no plans to ever stay there. I did stay in Illinois, but not Aurora. And then another phrase that we could use, a positive phrase that we could use through all this illness that I did use with my children, was "Your father can fix anything." Because this was known. Anyone who knew my husband, they would go to him first if anything was broken. He could fix anything. And I mean, not like look at it for a day or two. I mean, look at it and fix it, like freaking instantly. So there was a lot of power in that. So at the beginning, we just kept saying, "Oh, your father, he'll fix it." Because they would come to me and they'd say, "Oh, nervous, kind of like me on the roller coaster." And in front of them, I could be strong. I could be more courageous, I guess. And I'd say, "Your father, he can fix anything." But as the time went on, and there were, we continued to go on that downward trek into less and less ability for him to breathe. The phrase lost a lot of its effectiveness. And so really in this work, if you are using positive affirmations, which I am a believer in, the biggest mistake you can make is to say something that when you say it, it really feels far from the truth. It will just wear you down and tear you down. So I wanted to be sure to get that across to everyone. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be taking questions as we go or how this works. I know Don said something about questions, but maybe no one has.
Whatever you like.
Okay, so how do I know?
Well, can I ask a question? This is
What?
Fred. Fred.
Oh.
Fred Cutchins. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Fred. Yes.
What I was wondering was, did your husband at any point concur with your fear that it was you who had caused the problem, or what was his attitude toward that aspect of the situation?
Well, he never said anything negative to me about it. He really knew that I was a very firm believer that we create our life. He knew that I had that belief. He listened to it rather politely, and he didn't really poo-poo it or anything like that. I think he might have been entertaining it, but I never felt like he thought I did it deliberately. I mean, he knew that I was trying to figure out how the subconscious is working, and I would often just blurt that kind of stuff out loud. He was used to that. But so I think maybe he did think it. Because we both were very firm believers in that we created our lives. We were business partners. We owned many businesses over our time together. I mean, now we're kind of more I'm the only one working, and with COVID and everything, not that much. But I mean, over our whole time together, we felt very powerful in that we could have the life that we wanted. And with that comes some responsibility, when things aren't really going the way that it is. Do you think I answered your question, or do you have a follow-up? Oh, can I hear him anymore?
I have a thing to say about that, if it's okay.
Sure.
This is Om. Hi.
Oh, hi.
Sorry, my camera's not on. I'm actually
That's
in
okay.
my car. Um, I'm having a really interesting road adventure on my way home here, and somebody reminded me that I had forgotten it was Second Tuesday. So, but I've been listening to a bunch of the Abraham Hicks stuff and Law of Attraction, and you cannot create in somebody else's reality, so you can't give somebody something, but you can attract somebody that has something that you're obsessing about.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no, then shouting no at it as something you don't want to have in your life will attract it into your life.
Yep, I agree with all of those pieces. I've really, I understand the very first statement that you said, and I have heard, Jerry and Esther, or Esther say that, and Jerry's questioning of that. But I guess I believe that if that person is an integral part of your life, you are already co-creating. So I am unsure that I believe them on that place where I cannot create in others' lives, because I personally know that, like, for my oldest child, when they were looking for a career after college, I decided that I wanted them to have multiple choices because they had seen a lot of their friends getting jobs, and then they felt less than. And I mean, it happened that my husband found it. I had it as a note in my phone, and he was trying to help me with something else, and he saw it there, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is exactly what happened." So at that point, as my child graduated from college and that job experience, started to differ on just that little piece of it. But all of the rest of it I agree with. But I feel if you're co-creating with other people, you are also influencing what is happening.
Influencing for sure.
Okay.
Creating, I think the jury's out.
I have a lot of things I have the jury out on.
I think that he had to be part of that if it was created in his life.
Yeah, and I am unsure of exactly what, his stuff, because again, he's very private. I'm the one who, kind of lays it all out. But most people are a little more private. And so I respect that. And I do my best to not keep poking at it. And again, because then I just start worrying more than I'm loving him. And there actually came a place where he finally said to me, because I kept saying, why won't you do it my way? And he's like, look, I married you to be my wife, not my therapist. And I'm like, oh, shit. Not really, but like, I mean, how can you ask for any better than that? I don't know. I just, it's been complicated. Let's put it that way. But I am only offering all of this in hopes that it helps anyone. I actually had someone who, replied to this, and she was going through a very similar thing during this same time span, and hers went very differently. And, just to hear her, I just felt like, I hope that somebody gets something out of this that they can really benefit from, because I feel for the people who don't have the kind of tools and stuff that I do, and the understandings that I have, because I just keep going at it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Linda? It's
yes, Deborah.
Deborah here.
Joyce.
Hi. And Greg too.
I
wanted to say something to Linda. First of all, I manifested you when I needed you, and you know that. And so we got to work together, and because of you, I found my passion and have been helping a lot of people. And that said, it's you and Tom manifested each other. Like you said, he was in Aurora at that time when he wouldn't have been. We always question things. We question how, why, how come, but he was meant to be in your life. And if down the road he developed this situation, you were meant to be with him in your life to help him along the way. Now, he may not think like you do. We're all individuals, but you are instrumental, very instrumental in helping him on his path and supporting him on what he wanted to do and to be there. But we're always trying, we want to be the helpers. We want to try to figure it out. But everything happens for a reason. We have certain people in our life for a reason. If I didn't work and live where I did, I wouldn't have gotten the job where I met my husband. And, he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And then finding you and finding my passion. So bottom line is that you're on this journey together. You're not the same person. You're both different. You're individual. He wanted to do this, but you support him. And here you are. And he's gotten his double lung transplant, and he got what he needed, and you were there to do what it was that you were supposed to do in supporting him. And so, and because of your practice and my helping other people, I've helped many people with their challenges, and also you referred me to a certain book that it took me 2 years to read, but I read You Were the Placebo, and introduced to Joe Dispenza. So we don't know why. We can't always question how come, why did I think of this, should I have done that? We just got to trust.
Mm-hmm.
And, in your journey with Tom, you were supposed to be his partner to go through with this, because your father had it.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't have all the answers, but because your father had it, maybe his spirit said, this is how you're going to help your husband. I don't know. All I can have is conjecture, but I think you're an amazing person. You've helped so many people. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I am in my practice. So.
Oh my goodness. You're going to make me cry. Tears of joy, of course. Okay. Thank you so much.
Linda, this is Joyce.
Hi, Joyce.
Hey, I just have a little comment on the law of attraction and you and your marriage. And if you weren't able to co-create with someone else, how could you have children?
Okay. Very good
Right.
point. Yep.
And thank you for being here.
Well, you are very welcome. Okay. So I think that kind of handles most of the questions so far. So thank you for your questions. And I kind of want to move forward then to the next phase of my understanding of this. And that was with Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton wrote The Biology of Belief, and I got to really understand him and his work in epigenetics at that time and started following him to the point where I had heard that he went to University of Madison. And guess what? My husband went to the University of Madison in Wisconsin, and he absolutely felt it was the best college on the planet. And I thought, wow, maybe he would listen to Bruce Lipton and what Bruce Lipton has to do. So I tried to come up with this way of saying, here's a fellow, student from University of Madison, and he's been cloning there. Okay, this was what I learned about Bruce, was that he had been cloning. Okay, how long have you heard about cloning? He was doing cloning in the 1960s at University of Wisconsin-Madison. So I'm thinking, my husband, I'm going to ask Bruce Lipton what I should do. And one of the other participants on this call, Leah, she's there. She and her husband, she can wave if she wants to. They invited me to attend a Bruce Lipton presentation right in Chicagoland area. And it was on a palindrome. And many of you know I really appreciate and enjoy numerology. And so a palindrome is this number or even a word that is the same backwards and forwards. And so it was easy for me to remember the date that I saw him. It was 5/15/15, May 15th of 2015. And I loved his energy from the moment he stepped on stage. He said, yes, we will have breaks. I'll be here with you all day, and you'll have lunch, and you can take those breaks if you want, but I will just keep talking. I will just keep teaching. And he did. And in the breaks, he would let people come up and ask individual questions. Now, I didn't know that was going to happen. But I'm telling you, as I stood in line, and we had perfect seats, and Leah and her husband were there when I got there, so they co-created this with me, I suppose. And when I stood there in the line, it was a rather short line, and I felt at peace right away because I thought, I'm going to get to ask him my question. And I was able to put the question together very succinctly. And you can probably notice from the way the presentation is going so far that, I'm often very wordy, but I got right to the point. And I said to him, could I help my husband with this healing? He has given me permission. And this is really how my husband said it to me. You can work on me all you want. You can have other people work on me. And so I did. I had other people, some of you are right here in this presentation, who helped me with clearings for him, with all kinds of help for him. This was all with his permission. So I said to Bruce, much more succinctly than I'm able to put it together for you, could I help my husband, because I have his permission, but he doesn't want to participate in anything. He just wants me to tell these other people or get some healer, do something like that, and have him get past this issue. And he said, yes. But then he added, it is, however, the long, hard way to do it. And I'm like, what's like long and hard about it? And it's like he could read my mind. And he said, genetic beliefs are some of the hardest beliefs to overcome, because for years, science has been undeniable to us about genetics and how permanent they are and how there's really no way to, change them. And so that's why it will be long and hard. And I thanked him because I realized that he was so good. Like he took my words, he answered me, he didn't say something else, and I'm like, what is he talking about? I mean, I really felt like I got my answer. I was a little disappointed, but I thanked him and I stepped away, and then without him looking even at the next person, his eyes followed me as I was leaving. I could feel them, and he says to me, oh, and you could clean up your own beliefs, so that would certainly help. And I'm like, really? Come on. I mean, I had a little bit of a ab reaction to that, I guess we would call it in hypnotic terms, because I'm like, really? I'm the one who's going to have to change. This isn't fair. I've already had all my health issues. My husband was healthy his whole life. Now I got to do it for his health too. And so I kind of had a little bit of that, but I recovered from it even while I was there, because it was an all-day thing. And I mean, I asked him that at the beginning of the day. And I later, even through the day, I started to get these little ideas in my head that maybe Bruce was really helping me to know that it was something that I could still control, which does go a bit against that Abraham message, that, you know, we can't control in other people's reality. But, you know, Bruce was there with me. I think he wanted me to explore how much of this could I control. And that's exactly what I did. I really did some soul searching. I really did insightfulness. I really never let myself get too negative after that. And that was, you know, in May of 2015. And I really started to notice and track and witness my own thinking and do everything that I could, you know, to really help myself to face this family crisis and to be the one, you know, more steady, more like my husband rather than this roller coaster one. And I would say a few months, I'm unsure of exactly when it happened, because I wrote about the dream out of my notebooks. And so I didn't have the exact progression of it, but I had a dream that was so real to me and made me so calm from within that after that point, I often could reconnect with that a little bit and get a sense of a knowingness. So I just want to share with you what the dream was. It really wasn't very long. It's not a long drawn out thing, but I had a dream that I was in a really, really beautiful hotel. And as I tried to remember what hotels we had been in that would match this beautiful, lavish hotel, two came to mind to me. One was in New Orleans, which we spent quite a bit of time in New Orleans because my son was in the Coast Guard there. But there was a beautiful hotel called La Pavilion. And the other one was in Memphis, and it was the Peabody Hotel, where they do the little ducks kind of march through. I don't know exactly what that's all about, but it was a really beautiful, both of those places were beautiful. And it was like I was in the lobby there, and I was sitting there where I could see the guests coming in and going up to the desk. And I heard someone. I was looking right at the desk. I saw someone, but I couldn't see his face, but I heard his voice and I recognized it. I knew who it was. And he walked up to the desk and he said, "This is for Tom and Linda Williamson." He had a suitcase, but he was holding it down, you know, in his right hand. And I'm sitting looking at him, and I can see his right arm, but I can't see all the way to the suitcase. And he's telling her, you know, "This is for Tom and Linda Williamson. Are they here?" And she said, "Yes, they are. Yes, I can get this to them." And he lifts up the suitcase and he puts it on the top and he says that, you know, "This is very important and they have to get it." And I realize it's my brother-in-law, Bernie, my next oldest sister's husband. And he has passed, but he helped me buy my first car. He had been in the family, you know, long before I was even born. And so I knew him, and I felt, to me, closer to me than most of the rest of my family, except my dad. And as I got the understanding in my mind, this is Bernie, and he's left this, and he pulls up the suitcase and he puts it on the top of the counter. It is in the shape of lungs. I kid you not. And I'm telling you, it kind of it kind of blew me away. It really kind of was a shocker to me to have that kind of a dream. And it gave me a stronger sense of peace and a real belief that, you know, something could happen. Like that we really could get past this, that we really could get going in the right direction. So I then started really focusing a lot on my energy and keeping my energy up, because as I was thinking we're going to go in the right direction, I'm thinking of energy. And direction to me means you got to keep your good, strong, what do you call that? Your life force energy coming up through your body. This is a Donna Eden process that I absolutely love. All of her work about energy, but this one is one that I use quite a bit already, but I use it religiously since I had that dream. And it is that your good life force energy comes up through your feet and comes all the way up to the top of your head and comes out your arms. So we're like trees that can move. But our stress energy comes in our hands. It goes in a different direction. And it actually comes up our arm and across our shoulder and up our neck and around our ear and ends kind of right here. So the stress and the tension tends to be all up our arms, all in our neck, you know, up through our jaw area, around our ears, behind our eyes, and even across our forehead. And so with her practice, what she tells us to do is to interrupt the stress pattern by tapping right here on our collarbone, because instead of it coming this way now, it would come up. We're calling it up. And you're tapping solidly. I'm unsure if you can hear me, but you really, no pamsy-wamsy stuff here. You gotta have a solid tapping, and you're tapping right below your collarbone. You take your 3 fingers, and I'm unsure if you can really see this. I'm gonna try to lift up here a bit. But you would take your 3 fingers and spread them across around your collarbone, and then just pull down a bit, and right there, you can kind of hear my voice jiggle a little bit, and you're tapping, and you're gonna do this for 5 deep breaths in a row. You're gonna stay away from counting any tapping. You're just gonna count 5 deep breaths. So you could do it with me if you like. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, got it? And that's like, it's a pattern interrupt. It's a pattern, a stress pattern interrupt. And afterwards, you can feel your energy taking on a different direction, where you have more kind of pep in your step. You feel like doing something. I had one person that I shared it with, and he told me that it helped him with, he had narcolepsy, where you fall asleep when you're driving. And he said that after I taught him that, he never had it again. He was always able to catch it beforehand. So it's very, very powerful, and I would use it literally every time that I would start to feel like I'm on that roller coaster. My energy's going all over the place, and I wanted more control over it. So I would highly recommend that one for you. This next one is another one. This is, I can't even remember who I learned it from, but I'm unsure that it was Donna. But in this one, you take your fingers, again, kind of spread like we did for the collarbone, but this time you're gonna press right above the ridge, above your eyebrows. Like you've got that little ridge that's whatever that, where your eyebrows are, and it's usually just right above there. You're gonna press. This is more for like anxiety and overwhelm, rather than you feel like your energy's going in a wrong direction. But when I would feel overwhelmed and like I wasn't sure what to do or what to say or how to react, I would press firmly on this area above my eyebrows, And I would breathe in deeply, and on the exhale, I would say out loud whenever possible. But if I was around, others, I could just kind of be even leaning down on a table. It's kind of a natural pose anyway. And I would breathe in, and on the exhale, I would say, I am okay no matter what happens. And the second breath, you are okay no matter what happens. And on the third breath, everyone is okay no matter what happens. And sometimes I would do that whole set 2 or 3 times, but it's just really 3 deep breaths. And how that's working is this area that you're pressing is right in front of your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain right here, which is very forward thinking, and it's the part of your brain where your solutions come from and your executive functioning. And your amygdala, which is down in the center of your brain, is where all your fear thinking, your overwhelm, your panic, your anxiety is active. When you're pressing here, you're allowing all of that you're bringing soothing and comfort to your to the amygdala in there, and you're activating, pressing on your prefrontal cortex to help you come up with solutions and ideas. And that really helped me to calm down a lot, because we would be being told all these things. It's kind of like everybody's going through with this COVID now. I mean, think about it. Everything that they told us that we had to do after this lung transplant, we started doing last September. And they told us to do all of it for a full year. And then after that, they would tell us if we could kind of let go of any of it. And then the whole world joins us. The whole world is doing this kind of stuff now with the, got to wash your hands all the time. You got to keep your hands away from your face as much as possible. Certainly not touching mucous membrane and spreading these things, because we were doing it to protect my husband. But now as a society, we're doing it to all of us to protect each other and ourselves. So hopefully you understand that. And, I'm at Linda at linktolinda.com is my email address. And I just, feel free to ask me any questions anytime. I help anyone who wants help, who needs help. If you say, oh, you did this process and I'd like to know what that is, I'm happy to hear from you. You don't have to make an appointment or anything. Anytime you've learned anything from me in a class, I accept that as enough interest in you and I that, I'm willing to help you on anything that has become unclear, or maybe it just didn't make sense to you even when I taught it. Then another process that I use very, very religiously, I guess might be a word. That's not one I use often. I don't know why I thought of that. But it is all is well. And so I began to use the phrase all is well, because that's what I really wanted. I wanted all to be well. But I, even in this whole thing with my husband, especially like when we were working together with other lung transplant people, the patients would go off and do their therapy and stuff, and then the rest of us would be together. And many of these people would be saying things, like, oh, he won't do what he's supposed to do, or she never even listens to me. And that was driving me crazy. So when they would ask me, I'd say, all is well, everything's going great. And they'd be looking at me, who are you? What planet did you come from? But I really felt a conviction in being willing to say that over all is well, because no matter what is happening, when you claim all is well, even when it's not, it will stop you from complaining. And when you complain about things, and we were, the rest of us, like we had to be there. My husband had to go. The lung transplant is the longest recovery. We had to go 5 days a week to the hospital every day and spend from 2 to 5 hours a day there with our spouses, and my daughter was my relief. If I could not make it, she would go because she lives here in St. Louis, and that's why we're here, because tomorrow we go for major tests for him over the rest of this week, and we will get all the results by the end of this week. And we have not been able to go since January, and he's supposed to be having these every month, but with COVID, the hospital, our transplant team at that hospital filed against that hospital administration because they're only letting them do half of the tests. And we've got all these transplanted people. Last year, 2019, was one of the biggest years of lung transplants that they did. And they will only let them do half of the tests. So we haven't even gotten to go back because my husband's been pretty healthy. And you would think, oh, that's good. But there are certain tests that have to be done, like with scopes. They go down, they look at certain things. The results of those, he could be feeling fine and something could be happening that he has no knowledge of. And that test that we were supposed to get every single month hasn't been done since January, but we couldn't get in. This was the first appointment. And if we changed this one, which is tomorrow morning, we would have had to wait till the end of July, because I said to my husband, gee, you know, like, finally I get to do this thing. I can't cancel again. Are you freaking kidding me? So he asked them, can we just get it, you know, the next day or whatever, as soon as he realized that it was going to be the day after this. And no, it wasn't happening. But I would just, to these people, because if say all is well, because when you complain, it's going to stay the same. As you complain, you maintain. You maintain whatever you're saying when you're complaining, you're giving that enough energy that it can keep going, and you're going to have to face it again and again. Okay? Complain, maintains, and you'll face it again and again. The energy puts it further and further into your future. So please just say it, even when you don't know if it's well. And I know a lot of you know. You would ask me, I would always tell you it's well. What am I telling you now? It's all is well. But I'm telling you that we are actually reaping the benefits of that. So hopefully that makes sense to you, and that it's something that you will just continue to practice. People will love you for it. No one wants to hear all that complaining anyway, trust me. Okay, and then the next process that I really love is the daydreaming process, or the movie process, whatever you want to call it. But for me, as I would fall asleep every night, I would do my best to what do you want to call that? Daydream into a night dream about the best things in our life that we wanted to be able to do again. For example, we bought a home in Sarasota, Florida several years ago, and we got this was right as we were getting this diagnosis. We didn't know exactly what was happening. At that point, we just kind of both thought that my husband, you know, was getting a little older, maybe getting out of shape because he couldn't run up a flight of steps, these kind of things. But I mean, we never thought it was going to be anything that serious. Trust me. I mean, we really thought it would be no big deal. So we bought this house in Florida. Then we've got two homes. We got one up in Chicagoland. We got one in Florida. And, but we bought it mostly because I love that beach. Siesta Key Beach is one of the #1 in the United States, often winning that award. It's just the most beautiful white sand beach. It never is hot on the beach. You can walk on the beach comfortably anytime, and it's a long, long stretch of beach. You can walk until you drop, going either direction. I just love it. It's filled with people of all ages all the time. You never go there and there's nobody there. I like a lot of people at the beach. I know a lot of people like a quiet beach. Well, to me, I like a lot of people there, and I would daydream every night as I was falling asleep. I would remember a specific, because we've been there now, you know, every year. And we've had lots of people come and visit us because it's the #1 beach. And so I would just have that daydream of who was with us and where we would stand. There was this one area where the boats, some boats would get sometimes in the riptides or whatever, that how boats end up being stranded on the beach. There's all these masts of these sailboats in this one area. And we would always walk all the way down there and take pictures of family members and stuff in that one process, or in that one place. And my process was to revisit those things that had happened in the past, but to imagine that they're happening, and he's got his new lungs and that we're all there together. His sisters, he's got 7 sisters, and he's one of 11 children. So we've had most of his family has been there. I would imagine each time with a different group. I would imagine it with our children, our grandchildren. Don't really have them in my family, but I have all my college friends, my high school friends. I have, friends even from the hypnosis world that have been there. And I would just remember each of them. So when we had our first very visit this January, we were able to come to Florida. They released us from the program to come to Florida because we're far away then from our hospital in St. Louis. I asked my husband if he would honor my daydream and if we would go down there and stand by those masts because that's where I kept picturing us going, and he did. And he was I could tell it was very emotional for him too. It was one of the most wonderful places because really when you can't breathe, you can't walk on the sand. It's very difficult to walk in sand because you're really working to get through it. And so the last few years he's been driving me down there, and he waits in the car and I walk up and down the beach by myself. This was never, really quite the way we had intended it, but he was willing to honor it with me and go there. And we are so looking forward to everybody visiting us. We just went back now because we rent our home out to make it affordable every high season, and that ends on April 30th. So right after that, as soon as we can, we go to Florida, and we just got done there. And now when we go back again in the fall, we'll start inviting people, and we're really gonna enjoy it finally. The way we had originally intended. Another process that I like to play is the what if game. And you may already be playing this game, because I know I was, but in a negative way. So I would say, well, what if I can't figure this out? What if I'm doing this all wrong? What if he tries and he can't do it? What if we're just wasting our time here trying to figure this out? That is never going to work for you. But when we use it in a more positive way, I call it more possibility thinking. Like, what if this is all going to work out? What if he could play and laugh with ease? What if he could walk up and down the beach with me? What if everything that we want is on its way to us? What if everything is falling into place? Because like I entitled this presentation, it went from falling apart to falling into place. And what if it comes to us exactly the way that I've been envisioning it, like the beach scene? Okay? So I would even claim that beach scene and say, what if this happens for us? And really, it has. It's been a long time, but it's been worth the wait. What if something even better than what I thought is coming to us? And again, I think the even better is what we're experiencing right now. And that is something that our team of doctors suggested to us. They said, think beyond the lung transplant. Do not think of the transplant itself as the end. Think of that as the stepping stone to something better, something you really want to do. Well, my husband and I started thinking through our whole life, what did we really like to do? And when we were early married. Our children were young, in grade school, maybe one child in junior high. We used to, we had a management company called Williamson Management, is still out there, but we sold it in 98. But before that, we would, because we had to fit in all the property projects from Memorial Day to Labor Day, because that's the only really good weather you can count on in Chicagoland, and even that is a hit or miss. But we would take our kids camping before Memorial Day and after Labor Day in the quieter parts of the season. And we absolutely loved it. We had a little pop-up camper. We'd take our dog, our kids. We loved it. And we thought, wow, but the pop-up camper and all that, tents, I don't know. And we ended up with an RV, and it's beautiful, and it's 34 feet long. And we bought it when we went to Florida, and we drove it here to St. Louis. I was driving behind my husband because we had my car to get us down here because we weren't sure we were going to buy that. But this is our life now. I'm going to become the traveling hypnotist, I think. And so, there's so much fun in this, and we're just very excited, and we are planning to travel and, visit our friends that are all across the country. So if you ever want to be on that list for us to come visit you, we're putting together a list. But I thought it was really wonderful that our transplant team kind of planted that seed, because that already, if you're involved in any of this kind of work, you really do need to think further out of, for your success, to help bring things to you. Okay, and then another process that I used that I felt was really successful for me was the Remember When game. The words remember when imply, so this is kind of an NLP, neurolinguistics programming, where the words are actually creating the results. Remember when implies that something is in your past, that it's over. Okay. So I would say things like, remember when we used to have all those machines? I mean, our electric bill went down 2/3 when we came back from Chicagoland came back from St. Louis to Chicagoland, and compared our bill. You know how they always compare it, like a year ago your rate was, and a year ago you were using this much, 2/3 less, just from the machines no longer running. And, so I would say, remember when we used to have all these hoses and we used to take these, and I said it to myself. This was nothing I said to my husband, nothing at all. But I mean, literally, when we got home, the first thing my husband did is he ran in the house and he ripped all the hoses out, because we had a 3-story home we had bought in Palatine, Illinois. And he couldn't walk up. I mean, he had to, but he could walk 2-3 steps, sit down, rest, get his breathing back, take minutes, go up 3 more steps, sit down, get his breathing back, never complain, never, just, we had to plan like long amount of times, to get this done. But I was near tears of joy when he went in and he ripped all those hoses out. We undid the machines. We took them out of the house. We sold them on Craigslist to other people who would need them very reasonably. We took them out and put them in our garage instantly, when we got in that house. The caveat, or the caution, I would say is a better word, for using this remember when, is you never want to say something like, remember when we used to walk on the beach? Because see, now that puts it in your past and wouldn't allow for it to be in our future. So hopefully you see that distinction, because you want to remember that you're intentionally putting something unpleasant into your past by only remembering that, remembering when. So hopefully that makes sense to you. I also did some negative hallucination. this is, you know, in hypnosis, negative hallucination is considered the deepest depth of hypnosis, where you can imagine something that is there is not there. So for him, it would be the hose on his face. He wouldn't allow me to take any pictures. So like we had none, because he couldn't take the hose off. I mean, literally to take it off, he would have to struggle to catch his breath. So couldn't take any. So and if he did take off his hose, he had dents in his face because he had to wear it all the time. So I would negatively hallucinate that the hose was not there and that his face had no dent. That's what a negative hallucination is. And it was challenging, but I would just keep at it. I would do it. Another thing is I would do my best to be falling asleep. So that was another really good process that helped me, because they claim that if you can negatively hallucinate your illness, it's gone, okay? If you can totally imagine it not there, then you're doing it well. And then, I don't know, around 2017, I heard somebody speaking about, that 2019 was coming. And that 2019 was like the end of the decade. And that if we, so the 9, and I alluded to that with the palindrome, that I love like numbers and what they signify. And I had learned in numerology that the 9 year was the end year. And I had heard people talking about this is the end of the decade and coming, and you can leave things behind in this decade and move into the clarity of 2020. And what is 2020? It's perfect vision. So you could leave things in 2019, and I started thinking about that, and I loved it. I could feel it in my heart, like, oh my gosh, we're going to leave this in 2019 because it was the end year. And I actually got the courage to tell my husband that, and he really liked it. He said, okay, let's do it. And then he took it even further to tell me he thought it would be right around his birthday. His birthday is August 28th, and we got the call for his lungs on September 6th. On September 7th, he had new lungs. He had no hoses. He could breathe easily. I mean, it literally happens overnight. Problem is, there's lots of pain and other things. But I mean, he literally woke up on September 7th, because the operation happened from midnight till 6 a.m. And when he woke up, he had a hose on when I went in the room, and I'm like, what happened? Why does he have this hose? And they said that some people wake up and they've gotten so dependent on that hose that if they realize it's not there, they panic. But she said, I'll turn it down to 0 if you want me to. And I thought, yeah, show me that this is, successful. But he was fine with it. When he woke up, he could breathe and he could tell. But there's so much worry about addiction to drugs now that they literally only allowed him to use oxycodone for like 8 days worth. And it was very, very painful. You can imagine from the way I described it, there was a lot of pain. And so that's why the time of, recovery is so long. But that whole journey was really something pretty incredible. And right away the next day he could breathe, and he's never had a breathless moment since then. And I really appreciate you being interested in this story all the way through. And I do have one other process that I want to share with you, because it's one that I used even with a lot of my serious illnesses, where it's the type of a visualization, and I want to kind of explain it in a little more detail, where you think of the goal that you really want for yourself. And you allow yourself to kind of put some detail into it. And then I ask you to imagine that there's a path that leads to this goal, and that most of the path is beautiful and it's fun and it's exciting and all of the things that you would want for some great goal that you have. And then I ask you to imagine a block on that path, and an obstacle, I guess would be a better word, to your goal. And for me, when I have issues, I tend to see mountains as mine. Although one time I did see a whole big row, a very tall row of rose bushes, but it was for a money issue. And when I would try to walk through it, they would cut me and I'd be bleeding from everywhere. That was different. But I almost always get some kind of a mountain. But I've had other people tell me that their obstacles are things like a wall with no doors, no openings. Then the wall goes way down below and up so high that you could never climb over it, these kinds of things. There are others who have like huge craters where they can't, the path has this huge hole in it and you can't get around it, you can't get over it, all these things. I've had people report to me water rapids, crazy water rapids, they can't get past it and on to the next part of their path. I've had others tell me raging fires, they can't get through because of the fire. And what I tell them is what you need to figure out before you go on this path is that you created this path with your own imagination. And you can use your own imagination to get you past that obstacle, and that it's crucial. I don't want to hear that you get there and you can't get past it, because then you are never going to get to your goal. So when you do this process, you have to use your imagination so creatively. Just be that movie director or that movie writer where you have some wonderful way that you experience getting past that obstacle so that you can get to that goal. And people will complain to me and say, I can't do it. And I say, you have to do it. You have an imagination. You can imagine anything in your imagination, even your imagination itself. You can imagine it right now. One time I said this to a young girl, and she, like 22 or so, and she said to me, oh, as soon as you said that, I saw a dragon. And I'm like, okay, your imagination is a dragon. So use the dragon. How could you use the dragon? And she climbed up on the dragon and it started flying her to her goals. So you really have all that you need inside you in your own thinking, in your own way of approaching. And when you're willing, because see, your subconscious is showing you this path, however it comes to you. It's showing you this obstacle. It's showing you your goal. Then when you allow yourself to show your subconsciousness that you walk that path, that you get past that goal, that obstacle, and that you get there and you claim, you hug, well, maybe social distancing, but not from your goal, come on. Or you hold it, you hug it, you allow it to be brought inside your body. Now you're showing your subconsciousness what you want. And then it has permission to allow you to get to your goal no matter what happens. Got it? Okay. So if we have a little time, I'll just take us through that process. We'll just take a very few moments if everybody's willing to play, and then we can, I'll turn it back over to Don and we can wrap up our evening. Okay? All right. Very good. So begin by just getting yourself as comfortable as you can, and since you're there in your own homes, hopefully home is already home, not in your car, and allow yourself to begin to feel a little more comfortable breathing a little more deeply, a little more completely. Put a little smile on your face. Be happy and proud of yourself for allowing yourself to be a part of this presentation. Know that I appreciate you here and feel all of my appreciation for you. Let it open your heart and allow yourself to begin to think of that goal that you want for yourself. You can allow it to become a symbol, or you can really see it like a little picture or even a movie clip of what you want. Any of those will do. Just breathe in deeply and out completely, imagining that goal. And you may find that it's far away or rather close to you. The distance is completely up to you, or you may get an intuitive hit of how far away it is. But if not, just choose a place and then begin to imagine that path that leads you to that goal. And let it be a beautiful path. Let it be a wonderful path. A path that you can connect with. And we already spoke that there will be an obstacle or a barrier to this goal, whatever is keeping you from getting there. And you allow yourself to notice where that obstacle or block or barrier is on your path. And wherever it is, let that be okay. But once you know where it is, begin to walk down that path toward it if you haven't been already. And remember that you have your powerful imagination with you. And that on this path, you have permission to do whatever you need to do. You have superpowers if you need them. You can have others help you like a dragon. Whatever you need to do, you do need to get over or under or through or around or past that obstacle. And allow yourself to take whatever time you need to do that for yourself. And I'll be quiet for a moment to allow you that time, because in a process like this, time is up to you. Let your imagination take control and get you over or under. Remember that the same mind that created this barrier can create anything to defeat it, to get beyond it, to conquer it. Let your imagination take control and move you through or past or around or under or over that blockage. And when you do, it's as if there's music and wonderful roses, they tell me. And you just look at the rest of that path so differently. But before you get to your goal, I want you to take a moment to look back and see yourself, how you got there. See that you got past that goal. If you went over it or under it or blew it up or whatever you did, look back and notice that you did that. That you did that, and that now you have gotten past that block, and that you truly are on your way to your goal. And keep moving on that path until you unite with you in that goal. And it feels so wonderful. You're there in your success. You have reached your goal. There may be fireworks going. There may just be you so happy. There may be an award. There may be high-fiving. There may be a crowd there, of course. It's in the time where if social distancing is needed, you notice that there. But if it's another time, maybe they're even lined up to interview you to find out, how did you do this? What were your techniques? How did you get yourself there and get past that block? And you are so proud and happy for yourself and proud to share this with others, letting them know exactly what you did so that they too can live happily ever after. And put a great big smile on your face, because when you smile, you release all those endorphins that make you feel really good about whatever you're doing, whatever you've done. And whenever you're ready, just go ahead and open your eyes, offering a smile, that same smile, because I love to see people with a nice big smile on their face. And I love all of you for taking the time to do this with me tonight. And Don, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much for being a part of all this and bringing this wisdom and love and light and energy to us for this meeting. It's just amazing, and it's just been really great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, the whole process from the beginning to now, and that the whole epigenetic thing is stuff that and energy and all that has been what I've been excited about and continually getting more excited about. When I heard about Joe Dispenza's book, I've read his books a couple of times, and Bruce Lipton, I've been with him for a long time too, and so it's pretty cool stuff. It's just more and more exciting, and so we are all blessed because you have brought this energy to us. Thank you so much.
It's been my honor. Thank you. And really, I didn't know if anybody had another question. I'm always open to those as well. I love questions.
I also like the Music Man reference with Marion's song. It's one of my favorites.
Well, you're welcome.
That you started singing there. That was good.
I know. Well, I know some of you know Emmett Sylvester, and he and I used to hang around together all the time. We together, and he always wanted me to sing, and I thought, you are a nut. I would never sing. And now I find myself that I'm a little more chill about presenting things. I do kind of play with it a bit.
All good energy.
Yeah.
All that stuff, yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know if anybody else had a question. I'm completely willing to answer anything if it comes to you. But sometimes after you've been envisioning things, it's hard to remember if you had a question or not. I know how that goes.
But they can contact you at Link to Linda.
Linktolinda.com.
Linda at Link to Linda. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like LINKTOLINDA. And I'm happy to talk with anybody about this. Oh, and there are some notes coming up. I wonder where I see those. That's very nice. I thank you all for all of, there's a little chat button. That's where it is.
Yeah, click on chat and you'll get your notes.
Oh, there I go. Thank you, Carm. That's what I needed to hear. Thank you, Lillian and Carm and Vivian and Marie and Sherry and Viola. Bye. Roger. Her name is Roger, really. First time I met her, her husband had signed up and she was listed as Roger. So now we just play with that every time. And Deborah and Greg And Mitzi, oh my goodness, Mitzi, I haven't talked to you in a long time. And Paul Brucker, thank you so much. What was the shape of the luggage in my dream? It was the shape of lungs, 2 lungs, because he had a double lung transplant. And so that was the shape. I mean, that was pretty powerful. That was pretty powerful. I do absolutely love, I mean, I have a lot of dreams and I play with them and I think about them afterward and I try to make them better. So if I have a dream and I really like it, I try to spice it up and add a bit more, even before I get out of bed, just to kind of enjoy it and kind of add my conscious touches to it. But I'll tell you, once I had that dream, like I said, it was after I had seen Bruce Lipton, and I have no idea why, but I connected it with him. It wasn't, because it wasn't right away. It was maybe a year later or so, or maybe even longer than that, or maybe 9 months later. I'm unsure, because like I said, I wrote about the dream as I was waking up, and I didn't stick it in with my other notes, and it somehow became separate and separated. But it was pretty incredible. And from that point, I steadily felt like I was moving down that path. I was no longer so much in that roller coaster place that I had been. So
Everything is always working out for us.
that's right. Everything is always working out for us. And again, when we're willing to say these powerful things, even when we have no idea if it's working out for us, it's like we put our intention to that statement, and it gives it an energy of its own, I believe, and keeps it moving forward, into your life.
It's like allowing that knowing that it's going to work out.
I love that. Yes, it's exactly like that. You allow it to be there, to have its space, to have its opportunity to become a seed in your garden, a seed in your life, and let it bloom for you. But if we keep talking about everything that's going awry, we're planting those seeds. And we get caught up in it, though. It's so easy. I know, because I kept getting caught up in it. And that's why, Biology of Belief was the title of the book that I read. He's written more than that. But when I read that book and I got that understanding, and then to be going through the genetic thing and the beliefs of that, and that's why he said to me, you got to clean up your own beliefs. And first I was irritated, but then I really did start working on it, and it was helpful. I should sometime send him a letter about that, or maybe have my husband send him a letter.
Biology of Belief is available online as a PDF. So if you search it out, you can download it.
Okay.
And grab it.
Of course, I bought it and he signed it. So
Well, that's even better. That's means more.
But that's good. I'm glad you told people, because.
But it's out there, and that's the thing. There's an awful lot. Dawson Church is another guy I came across recently. The first book I read is The Genie in Your Genes.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And that's another good one.
Yes.
But there's so much science now that is backing up all this stuff that some of us have been talking about for a long time, and the mystics have been talking about for thousands of years. But now, like with Joe Dispenza and Dawson Church, they've got the instrument, the scientific backing of all the studies and the instruments to measure the heart and the brain, and it's just
no better time to join this field of hypnosis, because we've got so much more backing us. And I used to believe, because all of my issues that I used hypnosis for were medical, I thought that we would get those answers and that support from the medical field, but they were never interested. But the neuroscientists are. They're interested. They get it. They're with us on this. They want to know how we're doing this, how we're approaching things, because they want to, they have the understanding of it. They have an explanation for us. They're not trying to shut us up or ignore us or tell us to sit down, please.
Are you teaching a certification class again sometime soon?
I haven't, I'm going to be in the RV for a while. I have no idea. But I love the certification class, and I really want to. I really want to. So I'm sure I'll prioritize it. Should I contact you then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I've noticed that everyone's going on Zoom for things, and so I wanted to do things in person, and so many things now you have to be on Zoom anyway, and it's really kind of nice to sometimes be home and still be with everyone. So it's not so bad, really. It works out. You could be anywhere in an RV and doing classes, and then stop through town and do in person, and then take off again.
That's what my husband promises me, because he knows how important this work is to me. It's really my life, and along with him and all of his ways. But, he knows that it's really, really valuable to me. And when he first met Carm, it was in our building, and it was hilarious because Carm came to, I don't know, drop off something to me or something. And my husband was managing the building at the time. So he happened to see Carm there and starts talking with him and everything. And then my husband left, and I had the meeting with Carm, and I go home, and my husband's like, "Oh my God, Carm is exactly like you." I go, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "You can't shut him up. He just keeps talking about this stuff. He's so excited about it. He's like, it's oozing out of him." And then the next time that we went to NGH, we flew. And my husband bought my ticket for me and assigned my seat, and he assigned me next to Carm. He picked the seat next to Carm so that I
He
could.
surprised the heck out of both of us.
It did. We were shocked. We were like, he didn't tell me. But he's always supported me in this, and he loves what I do with it. It's just off his path. It's just different from the way he wants to approach his problems, and he's doing really well at it. So I have no reason not to let that be okay.
He's rightfully proud of you for being you, Linda, and you can see it in him when he really does talk about yourself. Make a great pair.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I really think we do. We've been together over 40 years now. We from the time we met, it's 45. So I guess we get along pretty well. And we've had several businesses together, all different things, even great clips. And bizarre stuff. We'll do anything. We like it. We like a lot of variety in our experiences. So I really appreciate all of you for being here. And
well, thanks a lot, Linda. We really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, Phil. I really enjoyed sharing. I do.
Can
anybody hear me? There we are. All right. So I left it as a message, but Linda, whenever I work as a caricaturist, if I draw a newly married couple, I always write happy ever after on the cartoon. So I look forward to your happy ever after, and may it be a good long after. So glad to hear the details of this story, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Of course, Louis. And I love your caricatures. You even did one of me. Absolutely.
I not to boast or anything, but I had major back surgery 6 years ago. And what's funny is, in retrospect, I wound up doing both what your husband did and what you did. I applied every regular medical thing to it, and then I applied all the lessons I'd learned from you and Larry in my readings.
Okay.
As to visualize both a positive result and a positive goals after the result. And I kept visualizing particularly that the bone grafts filled in. And I think on my second or third visit with the orthopedic surgeon, he looked at my x-rays. He said, "You're ahead of schedule. This is filling in faster than average."
Did you envision him saying that?
No, I envisioned an animation of an X-ray of the bone graft taking and filling in. So
Good.
I just sort of directly visualized it, but I patted myself on the back there when he said it.
Absolutely. Good job. Okay.
Anyway, thank you again.
Well, you are welcome. Oh, and Deborah and Greg are going to see Bruce in August in Colorado.
Great.
Wow, cool. Very much fun. Okay, do you know who's speaking next month?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
I did, but I don't.
I was going to say, we could.
Another exciting speaker at the Leaning Tower Y.
Yes, there it is.
If anybody does want to speak up.
Right now, who wants to speak? You never know.
Linda, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. And it was
You're
really
very welcome.
lovely presentation and so cool that it happened a year later after all of the
I know.
things that happened between here and there. That's just amazing and wonderful.
I agree 100%. I mean, it's just, I'm awestruck by it when I think about it in its, detail and complexity and in the wholeness of it. Really. Yeah, I'm right there with you, David.
Do you have a plan for where you're going to go in the RV once you actually hit the road?
Well, we have already been on the road here from Florida to St. Louis, and then we're going to go just from St. Louis to home. We have our one grandson will be coming with us because he missed his vacation time with us last year, and then he's going to take this year's also. So we're going to let him choose somewhere he would like to go because we'll keep him with us probably about a month. And because we usually let them come for like a couple weeks. And he's also the oldest one, and he'll be turning 16 this year. He's not yet driving, but we're going to let him practice driving. And also, he has gotten so tall that he's taller than me now. And that's weird when you're a grandma and your grandkid gets to be taller than you. It's kind of, but I keep cheating. I only stand uphill from him, and I keep looking down at him, or I'll make him sit down and I'll stand. Little things. Keep it real.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
Yep. You guys are the best.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing all these months of your life with us and how you're going through it. Your path will help ease everybody else's path for things that come down their road too. So thank you very much for all of that. And thank you to everybody for joining us tonight for the second Tuesday Hypnosis group. Bless you all, and keep well, keep safe. Okay, bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you.